Hello, public opinion aficionados, and welcome to Rasmussen Reports. And it's been another pretty crazy news week. You have Donald Trump going whole hog against, migration, shutting off immigration from 30 countries now, I think. Then you have all this stuff with the January 6th pipe bomber case. And not only that, you have a lot of stuff going on social media. But we're going to take a step back and look at what it means electorally, because the clock is ticking. 332 days until the midterm elections, and the Democrats are still up. But we're going to take a look today at exactly how up, because we always have polling on this channel. And today we have a fresh 2,400 response generic ballot. And we're going to take a look at all the demographics and also where Trump's at, because, and I went down there and gave him some advice. We talked about it in my last stream. We talked about the cabinet meeting. I still just don't feel it. And I don't think Americans are feeling it as well. And one of the ways you would know that is by looking at this. This is another negative Trump net approval print today, 2 in a row. And it looks like based on the overnights, the number's going to start coming back up. But negative 12's kind of bad now. I was talking about after the Epstein situation when Trump was at negative 4. It's okay. He'll recover. It's nowhere near as bad as Biden. But this kind of looks as bad as Biden. This negative 12 is the same number that Joe Biden hit on September 1st, 2021, when Afghani people were dropping out of C-130s as they were taking off from airfields. The Taliban celebrates victory with a crisis looming. That was the headline of the New York Times when Joe Biden hit negative 12. And so could Donald Trump pull it out? Yeah, maybe. I mean, look at this chart, though. That red line is plunging down to right about where Trump first term was, and that was during the Russian collusion hoax. And he pulled it out there with a whole bunch of accomplishments. But I think this is a different America. I don't think they want the chaotic Trump that just flings stuff at a wall to see what sticks anymore. And I'm really concerned here. Back in the first term, there was always the prospect of him getting another term and his presidency continuing to grow and even become more accomplishing. But at a certain point, you have to wonder if approval plunging like this might mean a death of his political capital long term, and people looking forward to what an extension of MAGA looks like. And right now, I mean, you saw the J.D. Vance numbers with him, up 6-1 over the next nearest competitor for GOP primaries. At a certain point, people are going to say, what are we even doing here? But here's the snapshot: 43% approval rating, 55% disapprove. Trump 1 got down to a 38. I think Biden got down to a 37. But Biden spent most of the last 2 years of his term kind of in the 43 to 45 range. So Donald Trump is at Biden ranges when Biden was going to be beaten very handily by Donald Trump. Right direction now is down to 36%. I think that's the lowest of the term. And right direction for GOP voters is only 65 now. That's spent a lot of the time this year over 75%. So all of a sudden, the Republicans are kind of starting to turn on Trump. He only has a 55% GOP strong approval rating. It was actually 53% yesterday. And only a 75% total approve. Most of this year has been above 80 for GOP voters. And he's negative 22 with independents, and independent right direction is down to 28%. That is not good. These people are getting frustrated, I think. Now, there was an election this week, a special election in Tennessee, and a lot of people were following it. And I don't know if I have strong opinions other than indeterminate, but my friend Robert Cahaley on Fox News had some really good thoughts, and I think it's worth taking a listen here.
That nutty leftist Afton Ben from Tennessee kind of learned the hard way that openly hating the district you want to represent isn't a great strategy after all. So she lost that special election race against Republican Matt Van Epps by 9 points. Somehow that's...
Yeah, I don't know. She didn't lose as much as people thought that she should have based on past politics. And I don't think it's a given that if you run as a leftist on hating anything, that it's going to have any impact on you whatsoever. I think that's one of these sort of Republican tropes that you just have to forget about.
It's like a big warning sign for Republicans. It makes no sense. It is a deep red area, and obviously Trump won the district by 22% in 2024. But from what we can gather, people have only been really paying attention to this over the last 10 days or so. And Democrats, yeah, of course, they're totally pumped, and they want to take back the House next year. So they're trying to get out as many people as they could.
It wasn't just that Trump won by 22. It's that he also dragged the Republican candidate across the finish line by 22 points as well. And now this guy only won by 9.
It doesn't mean Republicans should sit back and relax, rest on their laurels. Obviously not. But it's also not time to push the panic button, as I think John Thune kind of indicated today. Here to discuss all this is Byron Ewing, Fox News contributor, and Robert Cahaly, chief pollster and senior strategist at the Trafalgar Group. Robert, the heads were exploding last night, and early on it seemed, even to yours truly, because I wasn't looking at what precincts were in, that she actually might win, which would not have been good for Republicans. But what does this 9-point victory for Matt Van Epps tell you as a pollster?
Well, the 9-point victory to me is a little more concerning when you look at the fact that Green won by 21 and a half. When Trump was on the ballot, that's one thing. But go back to 2022. He also won by 21 points then. And the fact is,
interesting.
That was an election that was supposedly not a very good election for Republicans. So to me, that causes a lot more concern is comparing it with the 2022 midterms. If that's kind of the high watermark, this is very significant.
Very, very astute point. Because everybody would say, well, Trump wasn't on the ballot. Well, Trump wasn't on the ballot in 22 either. And all of a sudden that lead got cut in half.
What the problem, I think, is a messaging problem. I don't think it's time to panic, but I think it is time to retool and to recognize this system is broken and we're not doing as good. The Republican Party isn't doing the job it needs to at putting out the record, that people are not going to pay taxes on tips and overtime and the miles making your food better.
Yeah, he's mirroring what I said at the White House. It's a messaging problem, but the Republicans, I don't even think they know, like, what do people want and how do you message it? And I've been pounding on this, trying to get it across, but it's not enough. And Robert Cahaly agrees.
And the people aren't crossing the border. That messaging isn't getting out there beyond conservative media.
All right. Well, Byron, so Robert's the expert. He said there's more concern.
I think there's an aspect of it is getting out there on social media, but what people are seeing isn't enough. I think that's really what's going on.
Turn here. And I see what he's saying. I mean, obviously, Republicans always want to win by, double digits and huge. But Trump can't do it all himself, right? He can't carry the whole load of optimism along with Scott Bessent and his cabinet. The Republicans
He can be a leader, though. He can be a leader of the free world and have a very intentful plan. Bring everybody along on a ride to fix America. Lay it out, tell people what the problem is, tell people how you're going to get to a solution, what a solution looks like, and execute it. Bring people along for the ride.
He'll have to jump in and start talking about the promise of America under these new policies.
All true, but first we should say this was a really big win for...
See, this is the fundamental flaw I see. They're framing this as the talking isn't correct. When people want more, they want more action. Talking versus action. And if you can't get all the action done, you have to talk about how you're going to do the action more and then do the action.
Or Republicans, because their margin of power in the House is so narrow, they're picking up another vote. That gives Mike Johnson a lot more room. I mean, it's that close and that tight. Losing it would.
Mickey Sherrill's out until in New Jersey.
But losing would have been just a disaster. Losing would have been a disaster.
Yeah, losing would have been a disaster.
There is, in the aftermath of this election, a debate inside the Democratic Party continuing about progressive candidates versus more moderate candidates. And there are many Democrats who are worried that Democratic primary electorates seem to pick the most progressive, the most radical.
This is the future of the Democrat Party. They're going to run on hating their city. They're going to run on socialism. They're going to run on smashing the oligarchy, and they're going to win.
Well, they picked a candidate who openly said she hated Nashville.
Doesn't matter.
She hated everything about Nashville.
Stop clutching pearls about it.
What can you say to turn off the voters in an area? Nashville voted big for her, by the way, but she hated, in the region, she lost badly. So the Democrats have some real problems as evidenced by this. They had been spinning for weeks that...
So he's saying, okay, well, despite the fact she hated Nashville, she did okay in Nashville, but she didn't do well elsewhere. But she also cut the lead in that district in half since literally just 3 years ago. And so, yes, this is flashing red alarm sirens. Politics is changing faster than the Republicans are able to keep up with it. This is a real problem.
A close defeat would be a big win for them. Well, no, it's not. It's a defeat. There are concerns for Republicans. There are plenty of concerns for Democrats, too.
And Robert, doesn't it come down to what Trump was talking about and Scott Bessent was talking about yesterday? The economy is moving in the right direction. Obviously, interest rates have to come down, and the president wants that to happen. That's been artificially hurting the economy.
I don't know if voters care about interest rates. I don't know if an interest rate collapse is necessarily going to help voters at all. I don't think voters are tracking the CPI. I think voters are going to the grocery store, obviously, and getting screwed, but then they can't buy houses. They can't get a high-paying job. They barely can pay for health insurance. There's no aspect of talking about what you've done so far that is really going to make people resonate with the message that you've already alleviated their concerns. That's the core problem here.
But if Bessent is right and the economy really takes off in the first half of next year, moving into the fall, that's really it. Isn't that going to be?
I don't know if that's going to be good enough. If the stock market shoots up, like, what does the economy taking off even look like for your average proletariat in the United States of America? How is this going to help them buy the houses? How is this going to help them get the jobs? How is this going to help them feel like they're financially stable enough to have all of the children that Elon Musk wants them to have? It's not going to happen in another 332 days.
The bellwether for whether Republicans hold their majorities or even perhaps, doesn't seem possible now, but perhaps increase their majorities. He's either right or wrong on what's going to happen.
Absolutely. I mean, if you ask the average Republican, would you rather the economy be great, in the fall of 2025 or the fall of 2026? They would obviously say 2026. And you add an increasingly improving economy with interest rates that may at that point be falling, and maybe the home mortgage game's back going again, and it could be a really good mix. But the one thing the Republicans should take, and you were right, the president can't lift all this, and there needs to be a better effort to put the message out there. Just waiting to dump.
He's right. The effort and messaging needs to be better, but we're talking about measuring the economy, and I asked this very specifically: what economic measure can we all look at 332 days from now and say, you know what, it's better for Americans, and so they will vote Republican? I can't think of one.
A bunch of money in the last 6 weeks in a few specific states and congressional districts. That system is broken.
Good.
I mean, we just got through with a Thanksgiving Day with 3 football games that had incredible ratings. Where were the ads touting Republican accomplishments? This is something that needs to be a year-round project. The Democrats have the entire mainstream media hitting 90% of the Republican electorate, and we cannot.
Yeah, he's right. The Republican organizational system ostensibly has Trump loyalists in place now. Things are getting pretty crazy in the United States of America. This should be, all hands on deck. And I'm just not feeling it. I'm not feeling general quarters out of the Republican Party. I'm just not.
Rely on just the president, just, the conservative media to do it. There's got to be some real work put into this.
And Byron, that means, again, they have to figure out a way also to think about winning without Trump. I mean, what are they going to do? What about without Trump?
Yeah, there's no plan. Trump is just doing Trump term one. He's just putting stuff out on the internet with no structure behind it, with no intent, with no organization, and it's not good enough to solve the much bigger problems the American people have.
Put into this.
And Byron, that means, again, they have to figure out a way also to think about winning without Trump.
Oh,
I mean,
wait, what?
What are they going to do? What about without Trump? And
you see his face there?
For that eventually, too.
Hold on. I got to go back. Let's look at Byron York's face when he's told that the Republicans have to figure out how to win without Trump.
Just, the conservative media to do it.
I mean, what are they going to do?
There it is. Winning without Trump. Oh, no. Trump?
And they have to prepare for that eventually too.
I mean, he's been with us for 10 years. I mean, and that is going to change. And what's the post-Trump Republican Party going to look like? I don't know. But
We
first
might
of all,
be
they're not really
seeing it
addressing
sooner
a lot
rather
of
than
people's
later.
concerns right now. Look at credit card balances. They've been going up and up and up. People are using credit cards for essential items. Car loan delinquencies are going up. I mean, these are real indicators that people are having trouble getting by every single day. The inflation that went up under Joe Biden is still there. So that's something.
Halved from its high.
Well, the
Biden.
rate of increase, but prices haven't gone down.
Yep.
And so what you have to do is you have to have wages go up.
That's weird. You can kind of see this sort of like Murdoch tendency to actually protect the economy. Well, they're talking about CPI, but Byron York's right here. There are a ton of objective measures that say the problem has not been fixed. You can't do a Bush W mission accomplished moment here. It's not going to work.
Finally, and meet those prices.
And not bring in foreign workers that just depress wages, as Bernie Moreno just said.
Okay, she got it.
We're going to be covering all of this, obviously, for the next year. So thank you both.
Yeah, I think, good clip. Robert out there telling them how it is, 100%. Well, according to the betting market, here's how it is. And it doesn't look good. But what is wild is that even though Republicans have not led on a single generic ballot, and we'll take a look at Real Clear Politics in a second, they did actually get kind of close in the betting market to keeping their majority. I mean, it was in the 50s to in the low 40s, less than a 20-point spread. But after the November off-cycle elections, the number has blown out completely. And then just in the last 2 weeks, it's gotten even worse and nothing's really happened. I don't think this is necessarily trading on the Tennessee thing. I think it's trading on the Trump team's inability to message correctly about the fundamental problems America has. And then you look at this, and this is the Senate elections, which objectively have a pretty good map for the Republican Party. And, their lead is collapsing here as well. Not as bad, but when you layer election integrity and a whole heck of a lot of Act Blue laundered money into this election, it might go bad for Republicans. And I don't know what a Democrat Senate plus a Democrat House majority looks like. Basically the end of the Trump presidency, probably. And what's going on with Act Blue? I haven't even heard a thing. Why haven't we nailed them to the wall yet? But, then there's the whole redistricting angle. Supreme Court allows Texas to use redistricting map challenged as racially discriminatory. And then you have Indiana passing a new map too. I haven't been keeping up on this on a daily basis. Maybe it turns out the Republicans won't do that bad on their war of attrition with redistricting. But again, we're talking about fighting over inches on the football field here. And it's going to be close. Here's the generic ballot polling. It's Democrat +5 right now. We'll look at the crosstabs of our most recent poll. We have Democrats +3, Rich Barris with the Democrat +2. Now, he had some data just a month ago that was Democrat +8. So there was a wild Democrat response bias after the off-cycle elections. Morning Consult, surprisingly, with only Democrats +4, and this absolutely retarded Marist poll, Democrats +14. They're opportunists. But if you look at the chart, it kind of blew out wide, but it's maybe closing a little bit. This trend needs to be reversed for the Republicans to have a chance at maintaining the majority. But here's our story, generic congressional ballot. Democrats still lead in 2026 midterm forecast. Now, we did a poll in the summer, I believe, that had Democrats +2. Then we did a poll with the National Association of Independent Pollsters and had Democrats +4. And now where we're at, back to Democrats +3. If the election for Congress were held today, would you vote for the Democrat candidate or the Republican candidate? 45% say Democrat, 42% say Republican, 5% other, 8% not sure. 2,410 U.S. likely voters conducted 18th through 23rd November. And it's interesting to see, what's weird is that Republicans are only winning by 4 among men. Democrats are only winning 7 among women, though. That's tighter than normal. But look at the 18 to 29s. They're going Democrat by 13 points. But the millennials, we've been tracking the weird polling out of the under 40 voters. The millennials are going Republican by 7. And, among these sort of smaller sub-demographics, you'll see noise swings up and down. But that's an encouraging sign. Republicans +7 among 40 to 49s, but the 50 to 64s going Democrats. It's kind of weird. Split among 65 and olders. Republicans are only winning by 2 points among white voters, but Democrats are only winning by 21 among black. This is like wild stuff happening. You see what I mean about a political realignment? The Republican Party is hopelessly unprepared for the amount of agility they need to win elections. Democrats are doing better among Democrats than Republicans are among Republicans. We're talking about Republicans are only +80 among Republican voters, but Democrats are +83, and independents are going Republican by 1 point. So, I mean, I guess it's good it's not higher, and it's close enough to the other numbers that I can't quite call it a trend. And it's quite possible these numbers will change. Trump approval at -12 net will probably recover quite a bit, knock on wood. And so I'm not really sure where the polling is going to go. Obviously, as we get close to the election, it might tighten, it might change, it might drift out. Republicans might lead again. But right now, people are telling the Republican Party, you're not doing enough for us to keep you in power. And when I went to the White House, what I said is that you need to engage the Republican Party in a very clear new contract for America that lays out the long-term plan that Republicans and the Trump administration will use to correct the major problems, the major campaign promises that Donald Trump won for. Now, he won for a lot of reasons. I don't think it was ever very specifically laid out, but that's a problem. Probably should have done that. And if I were to say what that is, it's the fight, fight, fight plan for America to restore the American dream and to drain the swamp. Drastic government accountability. How would you do the American dream? Well, stop talking about turkey prices. Stop trying to, have your mission accomplished moment. Stop trying to gaslight people that you've already delivered on the golden age of America, because you really, really have not. Almost half, 46%, say the cost of living in the United States is worse than they can ever remember it being, a view held by 37% of Trump 2024 voters. Americans also say the affordability crisis is now Trump's responsibility, with 46% saying it is his economy now, and his administration is responsible for the costs they struggle with. Yeah, when you come out and say, yes, we fixed it, but you have not, people are going to get mad. People are going to want you to fix it, and people are going to realize that it's your problems to fix. There probably should have been a major accounting early in the Trump second administration that says, listen, the Biden economy is not just about prices. It's way, 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 way worse than you know. It has to do with things like corporatism, with the oligarchy, with lack of competitive capitalism, with massive offshoring, with cronyism. And they didn't really lay that out. They made it about pricing, and now it's their problem. How would you fix this? Lay out a plan. Tell how Republicans are going to fix it. Get a single-threaded leader on it. Maybe make J.D. Vance the American dream czar, and do it yesterday. And then the other problem, government accountability. Steve Bannon says, I think we have to go into the FBI with a meat axe and start taking it apart. There ought to be some federal law enforcement, but does it need to be the FBI? I don't think the FBI can be reformed. It's not about personnel. I think it's institutionally too corrupt. What does draining the swamp look like? I told this to Donald Trump. I said, sir, the FBI is Joe Biden's personal Gestapo, according to a majority of Americans. And you haven't fixed that. You just put somebody else at the head of the Gestapo. And what is that Gestapo doing? Well, now it's coming out and saying, well, January 6th is solved. We found the pipe bomber. Well, what about the 300 federal agents that were there that are all still working for the federal government that conducted one of the biggest psychological operations in the history of the country and made all of these left people think that people on the right are violent extremists? The Fedsurrection that we've been polling on now for years. Are you going to do anything about that? Brutal government accountability. You know what? Make a drain the swamp czar. Maybe it should be Stephen Miller. Maybe you should have done that yesterday. Here's another generic ballot poll. Democrats +4 out of JL partners. They're pretty good. The only two midterms in this century where Democrats won 30-plus seats were in 2006 and 2018, and both were D+8. So what he's saying is it's not going to be that bad. We're not going to see a blue wave. Well, who knows where this momentum will bring us? But he says that D4 isn't a Democratic landslide. It's more like 15 to 20 seats, which is an underperformance for a party out of power during a midterm. Well, of course, and I think some of that has to be blamed on the existential politics that we find ourselves in now. But the question has to be said, well, they'll still gain control of Congress. And what are they going to do with that underperformance? What does it look like? Maybe we should start preparing ourselves now. And the other problem I see is that people just don't really get what time it is. As the youth say, there's a level of angst, anger, dissatisfaction. And I think at a certain point, you're going to see conservatives under 40 voting for the left in order to burn the system down faster. And this is the sentiment that Nick Fuentes and Steven Crowder talked about that I think is a very important point. And people look at Nick Fuentes, and I don't want to get into all of this, but one of the things they say about him as well, he didn't want to vote for Trump. Well, he had a really good reason, a reason that you should probably understand. He said, you know what? Trump promised a lot, but I don't think he's the person that's actually going to deliver on everything we need. And so if he's not the right person, we just need to be accelerationist. We need to support Kamala Harris, and the system needs to get even worse until it can get better. And it's a very valid point. And that's why a majority of conservative voters under 40, for instance, are ready to give control of the federal government to an advanced AI. And by a 49% to 42% margin, conservatives under 40 are ready to give control of the military to an advanced AI. Like literally Skynet. These people are frustrated by the existential failure of the Republican Party, and they got to get their act together or it's going to get bleak. So I have no idea where this is going yet. It's neck and neck, and a lot of time between now and the midterms. And I think we're probably going to see some pretty wild stuff. So make sure you come to my Twitter feed at Honest Pollster. I actually engage quite a bit with people on Twitter. Love to have you there. Follow our main account at Rasmussen_poll. And, if it was informative, like the video, post a comment. Love to see ideas for things that you would like us to poll on. And we've done some polling, like the 600,000 Chinese students that actually, even though they know it's a Trump administration policy, a plurality of Trump voters actually oppose. You see, these problems are big. Donald Trump doesn't really seem to understand his base, and this problem needs to get fixed yesterday. If you've learned something, make sure to like the video and subscribe. Follow us on X at Rasmussen_poll and myself at Honest Pollster. You can watch our videos on YouTube at Rasmussen_poll and Rasmussen_rewind and on Rumble at Rasmussen Reports. We stream multiple times a week on Twitter, Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, and Getter. Thanks for watching.